Good morning, Primary 5. Today we are going to take story The Secret Garden, Chapter 3. Now open your story and listen to the chapter.
Chapter 3. A Cry in the Night. All Mary's days were the same. Every morning she woke and watched Martha lighting the fire. Then she got dressed, ate her breakfast, a little more each day, and went outside. The fresh air made her feel better. She looked better too. Her cheeks were pink now, and her eyes were bright. One day she saw the robin again. He sang to her as he hopped along the wall, and Mary sang and hopped too. Then he shook his wings and flew to the top of the tree behind the wall.
He was happy.
"He's in the secret garden again," thought Mary. "The garden without a door. I wish I could go into it too." While she was eating her dinner that evening, she asked Martha, "Why did my uncle lock the garden?" "I shouldn't really talk about it," said Martha. "Mr. Craven wouldn't like it. It was his wife's garden, you see, miss. They used to work in it together. But that's where it happened. One of the trees had a low branch, like a seat. Mrs. Craven had made roses grow round it. One day, while she was sitting on it, the branch broke. Mrs. Craven was very badly hurt, and she died the next day. That's why Mr. Craven locked the garden."
Yes.
Mary stared at the fire and listened to the wind blowing across the moor. For the first time in her life, she felt sorry for someone. Then she heard a different sound. "Martha," she said, "can you hear someone crying? Is it a child?" Martha stood up suddenly and started to clear the table. No, miss," she said. "There's nobody. It's just the wind." The next day it was raining. The moor was almost hidden by mist. "What do you all do in your cottage when it rains, Martha?" asked Mary. "We get in each other's way," laughed Martha. "But Dickon goes out whatever the weather is like. Sometimes the animals need his help. One day he found a fox cub. He put it in his shirt and brought it home. He calls it Captain. Another time he found a young crow and brought it home. He calls it Soot. It goes everywhere with him." "I would like a fox cub to play with," said Mary, "but I have nothing." "Can you knit?" "No." "Can you sew?" "No." "Can you read?" "Yes, but I don't have any books. I left them all in India." "That's a shame. There are thousands of books in Mr. Craven's library, but I'm afraid Mrs. Medlock won't let you go in." When Martha had gone, Mary thought about the library. She decided to go and find it for herself. She wasn't really interested in the books, but Martha had reminded her of all the locked rooms, and she wanted to find out more about this strange house. Mrs. Medlock wouldn't know. She hardly ever came to the nursery. Mary opened the door and went into the corridor. She wandered.
Now let me explain to you these 3 pages. Now Mary is sitting alone in this sad house, but one day Martha came to her and helped her to wear her dresses, okay? And they became friends, and every day is just the same. Is repeating. She doesn't know what to do in this house, okay? Then Martha asked her, "Can you knit? Can you make clothes, yani? Can you sew? يعني mend the clothes with thread and pins. Okay, can you sew? And needle and thread. She said no. So she asked her, can you read? Yeah, she said yes. Okay, now she decided to go to the library inside the house, not to read, but to know more about this house and about the rooms in this house. Now let's continue.
Through the house all morning. There were hundreds of corridors. Most of the walls were covered with portraits. Some were of children wearing long silk dresses and lace collars. Where had they gone? What were their names? Why did they wear such strange clothes? All the doors were closed, and Mary thought they must be locked. She turned the handle of one to make sure, but the door opened slowly, and Mary went in. It was a lady's sitting room. Mary found some little ivory elephants, which made her think of India. She played with them for a while. Then she heard a soft rustling sound. It was coming from a sofa, and Mary went to look. Two bright eyes peeped at her from a hole in a little velvet cushion.
What are they?
A mouse!
A mouse.
In the hole, Mary could see 6 tiny baby mice,
Yes.
all fast asleep. Perhaps the mice are the only other living things in the 100 rooms, she thought. She was tired now, and she tried to find her way back to the nursery. But she was soon lost in the maze of corridors. She stood still, trying to think which way she had come. And then suddenly she heard it again. It is someone crying, she said to herself. And it's nearer now. Then she heard footsteps and turned to see Mrs. Medlock marching towards her. She was holding a big bunch of keys, and she looked very cross. "What are you doing here, Miss Mary?"
Mrs.
she
Medlock
hissed,
became angry.
grabbing Mary's arm. "What did I tell you?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Medlock, but I got lost, and then I heard someone crying." "Nonsense. Now come back to the nursery." She led Mary along corridor after corridor until they were standing at the nursery door. "Now, miss, you are to do as you are told and stay in here. I've got enough to do without running round after you all day." She pushed Mary into the nursery and slammed the door shut. Mary sat on the floor, white with anger. "There was someone crying! There was!" she sobbed.
Now we have finished reading the chapter. Then Mary was lost in the house because it was very big for her and she didn't know how to return back to the nursery. Then Mrs. Medlock caught her and she forced her to go into her room and she spoke to her in an angry way. And she didn't believe Mary when she told her that she heard someone crying. Okay, and she then closed the door strongly after her. Now let's read the summary of the chapter. A cry in the night. Mary's days were the same. She did the same things every day. She started to be more healthy because of the fresh air. Okay? Not only the fresh air, they also gave her more food day after day. Okay? They increased her food, her meals. Okay. Mary started to ask about the secret garden. Martha told her about the library in the house. She decided to find it. Mary started searching and exploring the house. She entered a room and found small mice and ivory elephants. Ivory is a substance which from which we are making statues. Okay, its color is pale white, like white. They are called ivory. Okay, statues, decoration يعني. When she decided to return to her room, she found herself in a maze of corridors. Suddenly, Mrs. Medlock found her and she was cross and told her to go back to her room and not to leave it. Mary cried too much and tried to tell her that she had left the room because she heard someone crying, but she didn't believe her. Let us let's take the questions. The answered one. Number one, how was Mary's life in her uncle's house? All of her days were the same. How was Mary's life, how was Mary's life in her uncle's house? All of her days were the same. Number two, what did Mary wish? What did Mary wish? Apostrophe S, cancel apostrophe S. What did Mary wish when she saw the robin going in the garden? She wished she could go into the garden. She wished she could go into the garden. What did Mary wish when she saw the robin going into the garden? She could go into the garden. She could go into the garden. You can study from this part. She could go into the garden. Number three, how was Mary when she heard the story of her uncle's wife? How was Mary when she heard the story of her uncle's wife? She felt sorry and remembered her days with her parents. She felt sorry and remembered her days with her parents. Remembered means يعني افتكرت. So she felt sorry and remembered her days with her parents. Number four, why did Mary decide to go and find the library? To know, from the part to know more about the strange house. To know more about the strange house. So why did Mary decide to go and find the library? To know more about this strange house, or to know more about the strange house. To know more about the strange house. Number five, what did Dickon call the crow and fox? What did Dickon call the crow and fox? What were the names of the crow and the fox? Okay, the crow suit, and the fox captain. The crow suit and the fox captain. Again, what did Dickon call the crow and the fox? The crow suit and the fox captain. The crow suit and the fox captain. Let's take the complete. Number one, Mary stared at the fire. She looked for a long time at the fire because she was feeling sorry. Okay, so Mary stared at the fire and listened to the wind blowing. Mary stared at the fire and listened to the wind blowing. Number two, one day Dickon found a fox cub. Cub means baby fox. Baby. Cub means baby. Okay, so a fox cub means a baby fox. So one day Dickon found a fox cub. He put it in his shirt and brought it home. Their house by the moor. Okay, Martha's house, of course, cottage. Again, one day Dickon found a fox cub. He put it in his shirt and brought it home. Number three, most of the walls were covered with portraits. Portraits are pictures drawn by a painter, okay? Not taken by a camera, okay? There weren't any cameras these days. So these walls were covered with portraits. Now, let's take the unanswered questions. Number one, how was Robin when he saw Mary? The answer is he sang to her happily. He sang to her happily. How was Robin when he saw Mary? He sang to her happily. He sang to her happily. Number 2. Why did Mr. Craven lock the garden? Why did Mr. Craven lock means close it with a key. Closed it with a key. Okay, so no one can open it. Now, why did Mr. Craven lock the garden? Because his wife died in it 10 years ago. Because his wife died in it 10 years ago. Verb die is a regular verb, and in the past we put d because it ends with e. Died, D-I-E-D, died, D-I-E-D, died, okay? Because his wife died in it 10 years ago. Because his wife died in it 10 years ago. Number 3. How did her uncle's wife die? It's a long story. How did her uncle's wife die? She was sitting on a branch of a tree. The branch broke. She fell down, was hurt, and died. She was sitting on a branch of a tree. The branch broke. She fell down, was hurt, and died. Again, she was sitting on a branch of a tree. The branch broke. She fell down, was hurt, and died. Do you understand? Okay, number 4. What did Mary find in the ladies' sitting room? She found an open room. Okay, she opened it and she entered in it. What did she find inside this room? Ivory elephants and 6 baby mice. Ivory elephants and 6 baby mice. What did Mary find in the ladies' sitting room? Ivory elephants and 6 baby mice. Ivory elephants and 6 baby mice. Now, the complete. Number 1. The space air made Mary feel better. The fresh air, the new air. Okay, the fresh air, F-R-E-S-H, fresh, F-R-E-S-H, fresh. The fresh air made Mary feel better. The fresh air made Mary feel better. Number 2, it was raining. The moor was almost hidden by the mist. Mist is some drops of water appear on the glass in the early morning. Okay, so some early mornings, when you look at the glass, you can see some on the plants, you can see some drops of water. This is called mist. M-I-S-T, mist. So it was raining. The moor was almost hidden by the mist. M-I-S-T, mist. Little drops of water. Number 3. Deacon found a space. He called it suit. What did he call suit? The crow. The crow is a black bird which makes like this. It's called a crow. C-R-O-W, crow. C-R-O-W, crow. So, number 3. Deacon found a crow. He called it suit. Deacon found a crow. He called it suit. Study well these chapters. Now, thanks for listening. I hope you are doing well. See you again, inshallah. Bye bye.